When it comes to cars that do a top job of dealing with the Aussie bush, they typically come from Japanese brands. They long have. But in recent years, Germany has started making a splash, particularly in the ute segment. And they pretty much dominate the emerging performance ute market. Which brings us to the searing heat of the Aussie Outback, where we've come to test two of the latest and greatest, the V6 version of the Amarok and the V6 version of the Mercedes X-Class. In the mainstream brand corner is the Volkswagen Amarok Ultimate 580. It's a mouthful of a name, but easy to get your head around. A top-of-the-range V6 Amarok, now with more power and torque. That 580 figure giving a bit of a clue there. In the luxury corner is the Mercedes-Benz X350d in power trim, which is also top of the range. Each of our contenders will drain the best part of 80 grand from your bank account, although the X350d power is about 10% more expensive than the Volksy. Now here at 4x4 Australia, we have been big fans of the Amarok V6, so any big adventure in the newcomer is something we look forward to. In many ways, the V6 has helped transform the Amarok to the point where that's pretty much the default engine that people go to these days. And it's a terrific engine, does an awesome job. You've got plenty of pull right through the rev range. The difference with this one is everything's been amped up ever so slightly. So the 580, for example, that refers to the torque of the engine. Previously 550 Newton meters. 190 kilowatts of power, plenty when you think about it, but this one's got a trick up its sleeve, overboost. So in third and fourth gear, in certain situations, it'll actually pump that up to 200 kilowatts of power. So when you step on it, it's got absolutely no shortage of pull. That said, if it's too hot, the engine won't run that overboost function. The charge air temperature, or the temperature of the air going into the engine, only has to be above 55 degrees. Now it's 40 degrees plus out here, so we're almost certainly getting those sort of conditions. The engine also works nicely with the automatic transmission. You've got 8 gears to choose from. They select really decisively, and when you need it, the power always seems to be there. There's a slight hesitation off the line, but it's not much, really. It just hooks up and goes. The Amarok also has value on its side. That's maybe a little bit laughable when you're talking about a $72,000 ute, but it still undercuts the Mercedes. Side steps with LED lights built into them, a sports bar and 20-inch alloy wheels. Our car was detuned to 18-inch wheels to get a better result in the bush. The Amarok has really nicely sorted suspension. It works both in touring, higher speed, it works on-road, and it also works off-road. They've done an amazing job with this vehicle. And that's the beauty of the Amarok. It can lift heavy things quite easily, but it also behaves well in all conditions. It is a really well-suited all-rounder. One area the Amarok misses out is off-road. Not so much in overall capability, it's a really capable vehicle, but you don't have low-range gearing. So when you get to this slow-speed stuff, the stuff where you want that really finite throttle control and be able to crawl up something steep, it just doesn't quite have it there. You've got to work a bit harder and sometimes go in with a little bit more momentum. For 99% of occasions, that's not going to be an issue. You've got everything sorted, it's going to do the job, but there will be occasional times when even that V6 may not quite get you there. That said, there are some other tricks off-road. It's got an off-road mode, for example, which adjusts things like throttle sensitivity, so it just helps out a little bit more. That also holds gears a bit longer, pretty handy in things like sand. Plus you've got a locking rear differential, so just step the traction up slightly. We've got used to seeing Mercedes X-Classes around town now, but until now, every one of them has been a 4-cylinder. This is the one that everyone's been waiting for. The Merc engine, the V6, the X350d, so a heap more power than that Nissan Source 2.3. You're looking at a 3-litre engine, 190 kilowatts of power, 550 Newton meters of torque. It's hooked up to a 7-speed automatic, so it goes absolutely fine. The biggest issue this X350's got in the powertrain department is turbo lag. For the throttle, nothing, bang, then everything hops in. You've got that 550 Newton meters like that, it just kicks in so hard. It's just that delay that can get a little bit frustrating. And for things like overtaking, the Merc actually feels a little bit sharper. You step on it and it responds and goes, and it's got this really nice pull to it at 80-100 k's an hour. The X-Class is also impressively quiet, and that makes a difference when you're doing big kilometres like this. It's that refinement, that attention to detail that sets the X-Class apart. Clearly, Mercedes has engineered it to be a comfortable truck. So Mercedes-Benz, V6 power, top of the range. It's never going to be a particularly affordable vehicle, and that holds true for this one. For the power model, the top whack one that we're in here, you're looking at a bit over 79 grand, so it's a heap of money. And there's not much you can look around at and say, wow, I'm getting heaps more gear. The main area the Merc excels is in safety, active safety. So you're looking at autonomous emergency braking, a radar looking down the road to hit the brakes when you need it. Terrific around town, a little bit less useful out here. In other areas, it misses out. There are no side steps or sports bars as standard. You're paying extra for those. You also have to pay for real leather. It's fake leather that's fitted for that 79 grand. The V6 X-Class also gets a unique all-wheel drive system, so permanent four-wheel drive, so you've got the 3 diffs, plus obviously low range as part of the deal, so we'll dial that up now. It is a really nice system. You can lock the centre diff, you can lock the rear diff, so you can get a heap of traction going on. Often people don't mind paying top dollar if they're getting a top dollar product in return, but there are some areas you look around this X-Class and you think, wow, it hasn't quite nailed it. Things like the steering, you haven't got reach adjustment, for example. The seats, maybe not quite as supportive as the ones in the Volksy, and just the overall interior layout, there simply is not the storage in here that some are going to want in a ute. That's a shame because it's presented really nicely. You get some aluminium finishes, there's a Merc flavour to it inside, maybe not oozing quite as much as you get in an S-Class limousine, but it's there. No problems with the core attributes of a ute. This thing can lift heavy things, it feels stout, it feels solid on these sorts of roads. It does all the ute-y things that you expect, so Merc has nailed it there. That said, previous experience with the 4-cylinder tells us that the coil spring rear end starts to struggle as you approach that claimed 1-tonne payload. It's okay, but it's no match for the Amarok. So, 2 big power utes, neither of them perfect, in fact a long way from it. But if you're into off-roading, if you really want to challenge the car, the Mercedes-Benz is the pick. It just does it a little bit easier. Obviously that low-range 4-wheel drive system helps out there. It's also impressively quiet and it's got those safety features, so a great truck from that perspective. But once you start factoring in value, practicality in the cabin, all-round ability, the Volkswagen really takes charge, and ultimately the engine, the user-friendliness of that engine in the Volkswagen makes it a winner, albeit by a nose.